Good evening, everyone. Good evening. You've tuned into Paradigm Shifters, and oh boy, do we have a paradigm shifter for you tonight. We have a woman, a wonderful woman from down under, who also is up over, meaning Judy Carroll. Your claim to be, or your books are about having a Zeta soul journey, meaning that you are deep within, and then at nighttime you're able to be free to explore being an extraterrestrial. Now, is that true, Judy?
Yes, that's right, Veronica. And I've had an awareness of this from quite an early age.
Really? And how did you wake up to it? I mean, some of us are going to be jealous, you know that.
Well, it was quite funny. It sort of snuck up on me. Right through childhood, I was aware of something strange going on. I never felt quite at home down here, or felt homesick for somewhere else, which I think quite a lot of people can relate to.
Oh, I can.
And I couldn't work this out. Yes, I hear this from many, many people.
Mm-hmm.
I was also aware of going off somewhere at night, but the thing is, my child's human consciousness was absolutely terrified of this, but also fascinated by it. I didn't have a lot of conscious recall as a child. I do remember one occasion of being taken up our street, held by the hand of a tall, thin female person that I thought of in a sort of a grandmother image. And I remember she took me to what I perceived as being a railway station back then to board a train. And it was only as I grew older and started to realise more about the contact experience, and particularly encounters with the Greys, that they often use these screen images to make it a little bit less frightening for us. Mm-hmm. And in some instances, we actually create these screen images ourselves on a higher level of our consciousness to help us.
Oh, you mean
through.
We kind of set it up to give us something to think about that isn't scary?
Yes. Because what people need to realise, we're all multidimensional, and the part of us down here that's the conscious human part is a very, very small part of the whole.
Mm-hmm.
So many of these screen images and the whole ET contact scenario is actually set up on higher levels of our being.
Well, let me ask you this.
The preparation.
Do you think that all of us are partially extraterrestrial?
I think so, Veronica. I mean, everyone on Earth would have to be, because, I mean, this is how we evolved into the human kingdom. There's quite a number of us. I'm not a scientist, so I can't give scientific data on this, but I do know that there's about 200 and something human, I think the term's genomes or something, that just don't link back to the primate species. So it's like a side insert into our genetics that was the actual thing that sparked off our being human. So yes, everyone would have ET genetics in their makeup. So
let's go back to you awakening to it, because it's exciting and it's probably terrifying in the middle of the newest parts of your experience when you were a child. You were what, 9 or 10 or?
Well, the memory of being taken up the street, I would have been probably about 3 or 4 years old.
Oh, my.
At 15, I actually had a fairly conscious experience of waking up in the middle of the night being paralysed from head to foot. And that was really scary too, until I came to understand many years later what was going on. But I remember lying there in bed, struggling to move, struggling to call out to my parents, who were sleeping at the other end of the house, and I could see the doorknob turning in the bedroom.
Oh, my.
And I knew that there was someone out there trying to get in, and I just couldn't move or do anything. And I woke up the next morning fine. I think I just blanked out and obviously was taken up on the disc. There was missing time involved, and it was fine.
And so when did you get to the point where you were, I don't know if you could say, at home with it, where you began to really click into what you were going to do?
Yes, well, basically the term I use is wake up, when I was woken up. This actually happened when I was age 30. in 1983, early 1983. I was married by that time, living with my husband on an acreage property. And one Sunday afternoon, I started feeling a little bit off colour, as if I was coming down with the flu. So I went upstairs to lie down for a while because my husband's family were over visiting, so I thought, I'll just go up and lie down until I feel a bit better. And the next thing, I found myself paralysed from head to foot, again, as had happened to me back when I was 15 years old, unable to move a muscle and feeling very, very scared, and there was a loud roaring, buzzing sound going on in my head, giving me quite a headache. The next thing, I became aware of two of the Zeta-type beings standing beside the bed. They were fully present in solid third-dimensional reality.
Oh, wow.
Their bodies were actually blocking light coming in through the window. Remember, it was in the middle afternoon, so it was daylight outside, and their bodies were blocking light coming in. Once I became aware of their presence, all my fear just absolutely evaporated. And it was as if I recognised them as family. It was like an instant recognition. Oh, it's only you. Oh, that's okay.
Oh, so you knew them. It's like a past life feeling.
Yes. Yes,
okay.
Exactly. Just total recognition on a very deep level of my being. I also realised that one of them was a being that I thought of as my teacher. He'd sort of been hanging around for a number of years helping me out. I'd actually linked with him about a week before during a very profound dream state. And even then, when I linked with him, I was aware that he wasn't human, that he was sort of, I thought Davic was the thing that came into my mind.
Okay.
Yes, of the Davic kingdom. And I felt this absolute incredible rapport with him right to the deepest level of my being. And I realised that he was one of these ones who was there. So, of course, I just felt wonderful meeting up with him again.
But did you also get a flush of expanded light or anything? Did you, outside of the recognition, Yeah.
Yes, I can't even put it into words. It's impossible to put it into three-dimensional speech because this light and love and just total acceptance, understanding, unconditional love, everything, just at the deepest level of my being. And I just felt this incredible link with him. It was amazing. I really can't put it into words.
Makes me want to cry.
For people who... Yeah. For people who've experienced it, they will know exactly what I'm talking about. I was also aware of another one of them standing behind me and something being done to the top of my head. I was lying on a bed. I now realise this is the crown chakra point, so they were certainly doing things there, opening things up, and I think that was why I could hear this roaring, buzzing sound. It was like the sound of the astral plane or whatever.
Electric can opener, maybe.
Yep. A conversation followed between us, during which I was advised that I needed to move from where we were living in the country back to the city.
Oh, my.
The exact words were, "You've spent enough time hiding yourself away out here. It's time you got back to work." Now, as this teacher and I had discussed during the meeting a few nights before, I was reminded of the fact that I'm one of them, but this time have chosen to be born into a human body. And this is why I recognise them immediately as family. It was also explained to me that it was now time for me to wake up to a deeper conscious awareness of who and what I really am and why I'm here. But I was also told that I still had a lot of study to do on the earth-human level of my psyche to be able to carry out my Zeta work effectively and in a way that people down here could relate to. They then went on to advise me to learn meditation, and it was suggested that the best way for me to do this was through Tai Chi. And in hindsight, I now understand the wisdom of this because up until then I'd been a very physically oriented person. I was actually a dancer by profession, and Tai Chi was the perfect bridge to help me make that transition into meditation and a more spiritually oriented lifestyle because it is a moving meditation. Natural healing was something else that I was told I needed to learn, and I was told that someday I'd be teaching these things. Now, this gave me a bit of a shock because I knew very little about any of this at that time. I'd been educated in a Catholic convent, brought up Catholic. I just wasn't into sort of New Agey stuff back then. And back in the 1980s, here in Australia, there wasn't an awful lot of it around anyway. I mean, I hardly even knew what Tai Chi was, and here I was being told I had to learn it.
What's interesting, anyway, I just want to say this about the Catholic training, because my partner and I were both raised Catholic too, and the one great thing about it is that we were always relating to spirits. Do you remember?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That kind of kept you a little open.
Absolutely, and even the meditation side of it. I mean, I remember we used to have to do, like, back then it wouldn't have been referred to as meditation, would have just referred to as prayer or contemplation, but about once a month the whole class had to go to confession, and the nun used to run us through like a sort of a contemplation of what we needed to speak to the priest about. You know, have I done this, have I done that, have I been to Mass every Sunday, etc., etc. And I remember going off into a sort of altered state while she was doing this, and I remember one day one of the nuns commenting, "Oh, Judy's really, really gone very deep," and she sort of brought me back. So it was like I was almost trained in meditation right from then. Also saying the rosary, being brought up Catholic, you'd know about the rosary.
Oh, yes.
Which is like a sort of a mantra, really.
And it goes on and on.
So,
it used to calm me down deeply as well.
Oh, yes, yes. I was always very drawn to that sacred side of it. And when I left the convent school, I went to a state high school, which is not church-run, and I actually really missed that side of it. And sort of got back into the Catholic thing to get, you know, because I was missing it so much. Yes, so after being told all of this, over the next 3 years, circumstances changed quite dramatically for us, and we moved back to town in 1986, just as I'd been told by the Zetas, which was the last thing that we'd ever intended to do. After that, a series of amazing coincidences then began happening, which resulted in opportunities being put in place for me to learn and then eventually to teach Tai Chi.
Are these Zeta opportunities?
Absolutely. Love it. I also learned meditation and spiritual healing, and this in turn then led me into Reiki, which I also now teach.
Wow.
So everything that they told me back then was going to happen has happened, and it has made profound, profound changes in my life in a positive spiritual way.
And do you love it all?
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Did you ever object? As you made each change,
No.
Did you go like, holy mackerel, I don't know if I want to do that?
Well, of course, you have moments of, oh my God, can I do this?
Or am I losing my mind?
Yes, I did go through that. That was actually quite interesting because back then we'd never heard of ET contact or anything like that here in Australia. There was just nothing. I never really even thought of ETs. As I say, I thought of them as being David Kingdom people. And the first book that I ever read on it was Whitley Strieber's Communion. And this turned on all sorts of lights in my head because as I was reading it, I was thinking, oh my goodness, this is stuff that I've gone through. And wow, I'm not the only one. I'm not going mad after all. It was a huge relief. And apparently Whitley went through a lot of psychological tests and things like to make sure he didn't have any sort of mental health problems.
Yes.
And of course he came through clean with all that, so that was also a huge relief to me. But it was also a little bit of a worry because he suffered obviously so much fear going through it, and I, at that stage, I could sort of understand it, but at the same time I couldn't understand it because I had managed to establish communication with them, and I'd lost my fear.
And was his way earlier? Was it like 10 years earlier, or when?
When I'd lost my fear and
no, Whitley, I can't remember what his name. Whitley Strieber.
Yeah, Whitley Strieber.
Yeah. And when was his book out? Was it in the 70s or?
Well, I think I remember getting a copy in about 1987. I think was when it first came out here. It was published, as far as I remember, in the late 1980s.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess what I was thinking about the fear and so on, it's kind of the credibility is sort of increasing, isn't it? It's kind of rising.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And of course, I mean, I was lucky in that I had his book to read, whereas he had nothing to read or find, to find out what was going on. So I consider myself lucky there that I started to understand and open up just to the whole concept of contact with ETs.
How exciting!
I've only ever had contact with the Greys. I haven't had contact with any of the other groups. And I think probably it depends on where your star family is. Like, I'd say some people have a lot of mixed genetics, whereas others are just working with one group. Obviously, I'm just with the Greys, and I'm happy with that.
Mm-hmm. I've heard some strange things about the Greys. I'll throw out some stuff I've heard, which I don't necessarily believe. I'm just going to throw them at you. That the Greys are a hive mentality.
Okay, well, this is very interesting because what it is, they're working more in oneness.
Wonderful.
So they don't work in the duality or think in the duality way that we do down here. So
you mean they help each other?
Way, but they do very much. In the Grey, how could I say, culture, it's not about me. Down here, when we do things, a lot of our free will is directed towards me, looking after self. Whereas their whole mentality is directed towards the good of the whole group.
Wow.
So they operate much more in oneness than we do down here. And the other thing is, because they're vibrating on a higher frequency level that we just don't have any concept of down here. Like they communicate telepathically, so there's not a lot of verbal speech. Everyone knows what everyone else is thinking about. So down here, what appears to be a hive mentality is actually it's a higher level thing that can't really be translated into a thing that Earth humans can really relate to.
It's interesting because, yeah, it sure does. And the oneness, the concept of oneness, I read in your book. I do a lot of interviews, and one of the things I'm fascinated by is the Vedas, and they talk about oneness, and I've been getting involved in the world oneness movement, and then got your book, which was the Zeta Message. What is it? I can't remember the exact title, but Connecting Through Oneness, is that it?
Yes.
And then it reminded me of as above, so below sort of thing, because we're trying to emerge into that.
Absolutely. What I might do, Veronica, I might talk a little bit about what it's actually like being a Zeta, like how different is it to being a human, and this will help to shed light upon how we think. It's a little bit hard being in both forms because you sort of get caught between the two realities, and I know when they're around me, I actually get sort of a little bit cross-eyed because your mind's trying to work on two different levels.
Wow.
Physically, it's very different in that as a Zeta, there's a lot more freedom and balance. Down here as a human, I do find things feel clumsy and heavy. This is natural because the energy here is heavier and of a lower frequency, and it makes it hard to operate the body and keep the body healthy. And this is partly why I do Tai Chi and Reiki, to keep my energies balanced and running at optimum efficiency.
Wise girl.
And I would advise any other people who are aware of having a lot of ET genetics, like hybrids and that, to try and do something like that, because it does really help. Emotionally, we aren't all that different, but in our Zeta bodies, we just don't have the musculature in our faces to enable us to physically express emotion. But that doesn't mean that we don't have it or that we're robots. I actually find in my Zeta form, I feel emotions such as unconditional love and compassion more deeply because we're operating on a higher vibrational frequency.
And do they have a subconscious?
Not to the extent that down here, because they're much more open. Like down here, people can only access about 10% of full conscious awareness. So there's 90% of our, our psyche that is caught up in subconscious or superconscious awareness that we can't consciously access.
Right.
Whereas by the time we evolve to the level where the Zetas are, they can access 50 to 80% of their consciousness. So they're sort of 50% to 80% conscious awareness. And this is actually what evolution in the human kingdom is all about, is accessing higher levels of conscious awareness. So they haven't got so much subconscious as we have. It's more conscious, if you understand what I mean.
I do, actually. So continue. It's very exciting to imagine being able to live in two different realities and choose. You can choose, right?
Yes, to a certain extent, yeah. But at the same time, when I'm working down here, I just make sure I stay very centered down here. When I'm working up there, I make sure I stay centered up there, because of the higher level of conscious awareness in the Zeta form, you just could not bring it down here in full. The human brain couldn't cope with it.
But when you go to the ship, when you go at night, are you fully embodying that higher frequency during that time?
Yes, absolutely, because my body down here, remember our physical body it's only a vehicle. So to go up there, I just step out of it and go up onto the ship and work either in a Zeta body or just as a light body, depending on the work that's being carried out.
Well, that's very interesting. Tell us about the work you do.
Well, I'm actually involved in genetic work, bringing people up on the discs to take genetic material to create the hybrids and the star children down here. There's quite a lot of this going on. The reason why we're doing it is A, for the star children, planet Earth's actually stepping up to a higher frequency. Everyone's aware of this 2012 planetary shift.
Yes.
And humanity has to move with it if they want to stay in sync with the planet. And so this is why we're carrying out a lot of the genetic work. It's assisting human DNA to opening up more strands, or activating, I should say, more strands of human DNA, because this is intrinsically linked in with our consciousness. As I said before, down here we can only access about 10% of our potential conscious awareness, and we only have about 10% of our potential DNA activated. So the two work hand in hand. So a lot of the genetic work and getting people up on the discs is involved in actually enhancing the human DNA, helping it to wake up. But this can't be done suddenly. It has to be done very, very slowly. And so ongoing down through generations, it's carried out.
How do you choose how do you choose who is having it done, and how many do we need doing to become a conscious group? A totally conscious collective. How's that?
Yeah. Well, people basically choose themselves when they feel ready to evolve. This is like a pre-birth decision that's made. Like I know that a lot of accusation has been made towards the Greys, that we take people without their permission. We're interfering and we take them without their permission. But this is not right. Because again, we have to go back to this idea that humans down here only have access to 10% of their conscious awareness. So it's like what they can remember consciously is like the tip of an iceberg, a tiny little tip of an iceberg with the majority of it underneath the surface of the ocean, which is, we could think of subconscious and superconscious. So people plan their lives before they are even reborn. When they're in spirit, they make plans for the coming life. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And part of this planning is asking for help with their evolution in this coming life. They might decide, okay, I want to start evolving to a higher level, so they link in with the Zetas, and a decision is made that, okay, we'll come in and we'll help you with this. So it's like a pre-life decision that's made. But the trouble is, when people come down here, the veil comes over their consciousness, and they forget that this plan has been made, just as they forget many other plans that have been made.
But do you lift the veil? Did you lift your own veil? Could you see what you chose?
Yes, when I became awakened, I was able to do this. And this is how I moved past my fear. I can remember making the decision that I would link in with them in this life.
Can we all do that, Judy?
Well, everyone has the potential to. Everyone has a potential. You've got to be willing to do it and ready to open up and try to move past the fear. Fear, unfortunately, blocks an awful lot. This is where we actually have many, many problems up on the disc. When we're trying to communicate with people, this is another complaint that many people come out with, that they won't communicate with me, they won't communicate. But the trouble is we communicate telepathically, so therefore the person has to be in a particular brainwave state to enable them to communicate or for us to communicate with them. So what happens if they're in a state of fear? It's like they're wrapped in this cocoon of fear, and you just can't get through to them.
So it's really thick,
I
is it?
remember.
It's really thick,
Sorry?
is it?
Yeah. I actually have a very clear memory one night of being up on the disc and coming into the clinic area where we work with people. And there was a man lying on the table in a state of paralysis, and he was able to turn his eyes, and he looked up. He was aware of someone coming in. As I stepped around the door, he turned his eyes and looked at me, and the look of horror on his face, he was just absolutely terrified. And I felt really upset about it, because he was someone that we'd had up on a number of occasions, and I was desperately trying to communicate with him. Look, it's okay, we're not going to hurt you. Don't you remember me? I've worked with you on a number of occasions. There's nothing to be scared of. But I could feel it just was not getting through to him. And I remember I woke up just about in tears. I was so frustrated over it.
Did you ever resolve that with him?
I can't remember whether we did or not. I don't know. Some things I can remember, some I can't. I hope we did.
So were you ever scared when you looked at yourself in the mirror and you saw a different look than Judy?
Well, I don't think when I was in the state of fear, I never allowed myself to do that. But funnily enough, it actually happened just a few weeks ago when I obviously got up to work at night, and I looked in the mirror and I could see myself in my human form, and then the next second the black cloak that we wear and the cape, that sort of all started to materialise, and my Zeta face came through, and I remember thinking, oh, that looks better.
Oh, this is so exciting. So if a person wanted to, so you were talking, when you're speaking of the discs, I just want to remind people at home, you're speaking of ships that are there and possibly screened so that we can't really see that they're there, but they're there. Is that right?
Yes.
And
yes, they're on
are
a
there
high vibrational frequency.
And are there a number of them?
Yes, well, they come and go all the time. They're held at a frequency that people generally can't see down here. As far as I understand, some of the discs, I'm not saying a lot, but quite a few of the discs actually come from down here. The black ops or whatever they're called. And these ones are a lot easier for people to see, whereas the genuine ET discs are a lot harder. Not to say people don't see them. We can lower the frequency so they can. But
you can see them, right?
Bear that in mind.
You can see them.
Not very often. No. I asked why I couldn't once. Like, I can see them when I'm in an altered state, but not in my just everyday state. And I know it would be a bit upsetting to be seeing them all the time. It just makes me feel too homesick.
Tell me this, are Zetas, are they very often on the human, and I want you to talk about the human ladder as well, but are they often on the human ladder as well?
Oh, yes, look, absolutely, Veronica. Look, what I will do, I'll explain the human ladder, because it might clarify this 10% consciousness stuff a little bit more for people.
It's really interesting.
Yeah, and it's a teaching that was given to us. Our Zeta teacher, Horus, was very, very eager for this to be put out, for people to understand it, and that's why he insisted that I put it in the book. The human ladder is actually a term that the Zetas use for the path or cycle of evolution which is followed by all human-type species through the universe. And it's comprised of 10 what they call galactic levels, but they're not galaxies or physical places. They're actually ascending levels of expanding conscious awareness. And Earth humans are only on the first rung of the ladder, and so they're able to access approximately 10% of their potential conscious awareness. Now, I emphasize the word conscious because this is the key to where we're evolving as humans. As we progress up through the 10 levels over the span of many lives, more and more DNA will be activated through this, and then we'll be able to consciously access and perceive higher energy frequencies. So, in other words, we'll be consciously aware of more dimensional frequencies, just as now we're aware of third-dimensional reality in which we operate here on Earth. The Zetas are actually on levels 5 to 8, so they're able to access 50 to 80% of their conscious awareness. And the ones that we think of down here as angels are on levels 9 to 10. So they have 90 to 100% conscious awareness. So in other words, they're fully awakened to what could be called divine or cosmic awareness or consciousness. So they're not physical beings at all. They've moved way, way beyond that. They can show themselves down here. What an angelic being does, if they want to show themselves to someone down here, they will actually tap into the person's mind to perceive what that person thinks of as being an angel. And, of course, the majority of people down here think of angels as, the blonde, blue-eyed, winged creatures with light around them. So that's exactly how they'll show themselves. So it fits in with that person's belief system.
Oh. That's so interesting. So the Zetas, let me see, how can I ask this? The Zetas don't all go through the third dimension, do they? I mean, isn't that an option that beings have that aren't necessarily 3D? They don't have to be born.
Not on the human ladder. Everyone has to work their way up.
Everybody does, huh?
Everyone does, yes. We all follow the same path. And it's that gives these higher beings the right to come back and help people down here, because they've been there, done that. They know exactly what we're going through down here. They understand it intimately. They may not have been through planet Earth. I mean, there's many, many planets on all these different levels. I remember once Aura said to us on level 1 where planet Earth is, he said, there's about 1,000 different humanoid life forms on that level. So there's many, many different planets on that level. They may not have been through Earth. They may have been through other planetary systems. But they've all been there, done that, up through the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, cosmic. They've worked their way up.
So how do you recommend that a lot of us move through so we can get off the first rung of the ladder?
Well, it's really important, particularly at this time with the frequency shifting so radically. It's important that we carry out some sort of spiritual practice, depending on what we feel comfortable with. I mean, you can meditate, you can do things like yoga or Tai Chi or Reiki. If you're very strongly Christian, I mean, you can follow the Christian tradition. Prayer and meditation is a lovely way to connect with higher sources. It depends entirely upon the individual, and every spiritual practice is acknowledged as being fine, as long as it's about love as opposed to fear. What we've got to try and do, we've got to try to link into the love vibration rather than the fear vibration. If you keep linking into the fear, it holds you back because it's a lower vibrational frequency.
That's wonderful information. And I was reading in the Zeta Message, Connecting All Beings in Oneness, I was reading how hard you worked on clearing reactions and fear, right? Didn't you? You went through quite a bit of that, didn't you?
Quite a bit, yes. I've had a past life recall I've had to work through. I actually sat in a meditation circle for about 8 years, in which I learnt to channel, I learnt to do like automatic type writing, which is what led me through to the writing I'm doing now. So yes, we used to meet week in, week out, and heaven help us if we had to miss a week. We had a very, very, very good strict teacher who's a lovely, lovely lady. She taught me a huge amount. And so yes, every week for 8 years I sat in that circle. I also learned Reiki during it, which has really, really helped me to clear an awful lot. And yes, it's been a pretty long, interesting journey.
Well, it's probably a lifetime journey, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. Many lifetimes, Veronica, many.
Do you think that's true for all of us? Are we able to?
Absolutely.
Are we able to get away from the tyranny of our subconscious?
Yes, well, through meditational training. It's all to do with control, learning to control the mind, moving away from the fear.
Oh, that old thing.
Yeah, that old thing.
Tell me this, Judy. And you go up into the ships, and I want to go back into the abductions and so on in a minute, but do you ever travel in the ships? Do you get to go tootling around?
Oh, yes. Well, I wasn't getting a huge amount of conscious awareness of it at the time, but my co-author, Helene's daughter, Kira, was very consciously aware, particularly during the 9/11 event, where we were actually going over there helping out. Mm-hmm. There were Zetas and angels over there working.
I want you to also talk about what happened before the 9/11 event. That's a really important section of both of the books, actually. Your experience there.
Yes, that was quite amazing. Kira came over to my place one day. Oh, we were talking about things that had been going on upstairs, and she was very upset.
She's a teenager at the time.
That's right. I'm just trying to think back. It seems so long ago since it happened. That's right. I woke up with a sore spot on my face, like as if I was sort of getting it was like a little pimple or something, and I'm not prone to skin problems like that. I'm one of these ones who can handle fertilizer and that and doesn't worry me. And I woke up one morning with this sore spot on my face. Anyway, that day, Helene rang me to say that Kira had told her that there'd been an attack up on the disc and that their computer equipment had all been sabotaged. Now, this computer equipment up on the disc, it's like surveillance equipment in that we can keep an eye on all the different planets where we're working. And this attack apparently had come from down here because it was like the Earth surveillance section that went down. And Kira described the chaos that was happening up on the disc trying to get this system up and running. And she also always used to talk about when she went onto the disc, I was sort of sitting at this front table or desk, and I thought maybe some sort of negative influence had come onto the disc and I'd been attacked, and this is why I had this sore spot on my face. Anyway, this was exactly 3 weeks before the 9/11 attack happened, and of course time doesn't run up there like it does down here. So obviously what happened, the surveillance system was sabotaged so that we couldn't intervene in any way. Not that we're always allowed to intervene. I mean, sometimes we're allowed to, sometimes we're not. But perhaps on this occasion we were meant to, and because our system went down, we weren't able to. And so that was what happened. That was a result of it.
And that is a job of extraterrestrial beings, is to interfere with destructive activities at times, is it?
Yes, yeah. We can't always interfere, but sometimes we can just sort of ease the situation a little bit. I think, like I quote in the book, I talk about sometimes you might have a terrorist bomb set to go off at the peak hour and in the middle of a busy street, and the bomb goes off early or later or something when there's not so many people around. So we can sort of intervene to a certain extent like that to just minimise the impact of things. Sometimes we're allowed to and sometimes we're not. We work very much by God's will. And so, of course, these events, there's always karma and things like that tied in with it, and we have to respect all that. So it's quite complex.
It is,
we can't always intervene.
So,
it's like a multi-dimensional jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah. Were you involved in Fukushima?
I'm not aware of being over there, but I would think I would have been. I've been fairly busy down here, so I haven't had a lot of conscious contact or memory of contact from upstairs over the past year or so.
Do you ever have memory of upstairs?
Sometimes I do. I don't have a great deal. Sometimes I do. If I'm meant to remember, I do. But most things I'm not meant to remember.
I have a friend who said, how did she get to be in that role? You know, she wanted to do that too.
Well, she probably does.
Yeah, it's funny because she's always said she doesn't really belong here, which many of us have said. And you've already mentioned that. But I know she'll be listening tonight, so I'm chuckling, going, What would you say to that? Are those of us who, I won't call it envy, aspiration, those of us who would love to be involved, can we program ourselves to create that connection?
Well, the truth of the matter is you probably have the connection now and you're just not remembering it. See, what people need to remember is to bring anything back from up there. You've got to be careful because our human brain just can't cope with it. There's just so much input in those higher dimensions. So if you have any memory at all, it's probably sort of covered up by a screen memory. But I always say that to people, if you desperately want to be there, well, it's most likely that you are anyway, but you're just not remembering it. So I'd say that to your friend. She probably is up there, probably playing a very important role.
Well, and I noticed in your books...
can't bring it back.
I noticed in your books you mention dreams a lot. Does a lot of the waking up come through that part of our consciousness?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. If you can record your dreams, I'm very, very lazy with that. I'm terrible. I did it for a while, and it was amazing stuff that was coming through, and now I don't do it anymore. But if you can record your dreams, you get some real good stuff coming through that way. I wake in the morning and I can half remember stuff that I just can't quite grasp it, and I know there's heaps of stuff going on, and it's frustrating. So I must get back into doing that again.
Well, I'm impressed with the dreams that you talk about in the books. If we call in, if we pray and meditate and so on, and call in the beings, do you think they would come visit us in a seeable fashion?
Well, it's important. Yes, it's important to ask. They like to be asked. They won't interfere unless we ask. So yes, I will say that to people. Absolutely. Look, I call them in all the time. I work as a Reiki teacher and practitioner, so does Helene, and we both always invite the guardian family in, and our angels and our guides and whoever else is hanging around out there. And we give you full permission to come in and help us. Come in. As long as you're in the light, come in and give us a hand. And we just do it like we're talking to a family member. There's no need to do it in formal archaic type speech. You just talk to them like a family member, and they love that.
And you don't, so then, let me see. Channeling. Let's talk a bit about channeling. You don't channel them, do you actually see them as real beings?
I used to do channeling. I was actually trained in it when I was sitting in the meditation circle. I can do it, but I prefer to do it through writing because the channel message, it's a little bit hard because of the way the Zetas work in their consciousness. It's not always easy to translate. They sort of put large images into your mind and even when you're channeling, trying to sort of translate it from their reality into human reality. The two realities are fairly different. So it is a little bit hard. This is why I prefer to do it via writing, because it just gives me a little bit more time to translate, and I can go back over it and check, okay, that was right, that wasn't quite right, I didn't quite grasp that. And sometimes when I'm writing, they will actually come in and say, oh, no, you haven't worded that properly, just reword it or go back over it.
Oh, that's nice.
A little bit more time and space.
We could use a little help on that, hey?
Oh, they're fantastic. They froze the cursor on me once on the computer when I was writing something and I didn't word it quite the way they felt it should have been worded. The way I had it, they thought it would be a bit scary for people or something. And they just froze the cursor on me. And I was just working in Word. It was just amazing. And I thought it was a computer problem. And I finally realized it was a Zeta problem.
They're kind of training you as an emissary of oneness, aren't they? Or is that
Absolutely.
so? Is that?
Well, we're sort of all down here to carry out this work. And it's just a matter of trying to sort of wake ourselves up to the point where we are able to then sort of move on to help others.
Well, you also are talking about they think differently, or their communication, their brains work differently, and do they use like symbolism, or do they use color and symbolism, or can you explain some of that?
Oh, look, it's really hard to actually put into physical words. Yes, they're very much into colour.
Mm-hmm.
Each of the Zeta teachers tends to display a colour, like they dress in black. So if people see anyone in their room, with a black cape and hat, and they don't automatically think it's evil. It could be a Zeta teacher. And the reason why they do this is because black it actually absorbs all colour.
All colour.
So it's almost like there's all colours there, and then we can draw off whatever colour we need to balance our chakra. So, for example, my teacher always shows the colour blue. He has a little bit of blue on his outfit somewhere, because my job has been creative communication through speaking, writing, etc. And so it's the throat chakra that I need to keep strong and need to keep balanced. So that's what my Zeta teacher directs towards me, is the colour blue. I once actually had a contact experience where a needle was put into my third eye, and there was a huge faceted blue crystal on the end of it, most beautiful crystal. And even though it was a pretty scary, painful experience, I realised what they were doing. It was like an acupuncture technique, and this needle corresponds to the colour of the teacher that I work with. So yes, they're very much into colour.
So did that open your third eye for you?
Yes. I'm not clairvoyant in that I can see all the time. I mean, I can when I'm in an altered state, but it was that opened me up further to be able to write the books, to communicate on that level. It was after that experience that the idea for writing the book started coming through. And they linked with me and sort of gave me ideas about it after that experience. So yes, it did in a way. Sort of open my sensitivity. So I could communicate with them more easily.
And the color system, the chakra color system and so on, is that common throughout universes? I mean, is that a really solid basic communication for all throughout?
Yes, well, of course, the colour spectrum links in with the electromagnetic scale, so that each of the colours resonates at its own particular frequency. And this is quite interesting, because we asked one of the Zeta teachers about this once. We said, do you have more colours up there than we have down here? And he said, oh yes, many more, but he said we're also aware that there are colours beyond what we can perceive. So yes, the colour thing goes right through the whole universe.
Oh, that's wonderful.
The other thing it's important for people to understand is that the universe is actually a multiverse. The physical part of the universe is only a very, very small part. The majority of the universe is way beyond what we can perceive physically. And I always laugh when the scientists down here send these signals out into space to try and contact ETs. I mean, they're so limited.
It's so non-linear,
really.
Isn't it?
Oh, totally.
And what about sound? And the Word was made flesh, and sound. Can you talk a bit about that?
Well, yes, it's exactly the same thing. I mean, there's sound way, way, way beyond what our senses are able to pick up on. So, yes, I mean, the whole universe, all the multi dimensions of the universe, the whole universe is energy. That's the bottom line. And this is really the bottom line also of how the Zetas think. The whole universe is energy vibrating at infinite frequencies. So when you think in Zeta way, you always think in terms of energy rather than in terms of solid matter. This is really, really the crux of where the two realities are so different.
So when you're saying multiverses, it's all about energy that is what? Perceivable, not perceivable, moving differently. Is that it?
Like for example, the electromagnetic scale, it's infinite. I don't know how scientists down here think of it, but it's infinite and extends through all the different dimensions of the universe. So yes, there are sounds and there are colours and spectrums of light and that, but we just couldn't perceive in a million years. I mean, what we can perceive down here in third-dimensional reality is a tiny, tiny, tiny. It's one grain on all the beaches in the world. You could think of it as being one grain of sand in all those beaches. It's so minute.
Wow. Well, also there's something that links into that for me anyway, as something that I think I understand and actually don't have a clue what I'm talking about, which is that we have many concurrent realities going on. Is that right? And are they in the multiverses?
Yes, that'd be right, Veronica, because it's all here and all now. We can only perceive a very small, limited perspective. But yes, all of reality is going on here and now, right around us. Sometimes if you get a person down here, maybe some of the star children can link into slightly higher vibrational frequencies because they're working on levels or starting to work on level 2 of the human ladder. So they start to become aware of these things.
And who are the star children?
Much more going on.
Are you a star child?
Who?
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones who've had an energy upgrade through being taken up on the disc, or their parents being taken up on the disc. So they just have that higher percentage of ET genetics in their makeup, which enables them to start stepping up to level 2, which is what the planet's doing. That's what the 2012 shift is all about.
Can we buy a ticket for the disc? Or like you say, we could well be going up and just don't realize it, right?
Absolutely, yeah, for sure.
So I want you to...
I wouldn't mind...
Go ahead.
Sorry?
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, I wouldn't mind just talking a little bit about this planetary healing exercise. My publisher of Granite Publishing has started up an exercise. People who do want to, I know there are a lot of people who feel like they want to do something to help this shift and they just don't know what to do. He's actually started up this wonderful planetary healing exercise where we all link together at the new moon and the full moon. So it's twice a month we get together, either in virtual reality or with groups, and meditate. There's meditations been put out that you can follow, or you can just do your own thing. And it's all towards planetary healing, helping to raise the vibrational frequency of humanity. And what I'll do, I'll just give out their website that people can go on to.
Please.
It's granite-planet.net. That's Granite Publishing is GRANITE, so it's granite-planet.net. And they can go in there and just check it all out and find out about it. I would also like to give out our websites. They can actually get into the Granite website through ours.
Okay.
We've got a couple of different ones. One is ufograyinfo.com, and Gray is spelled Grey in the Australian way or English way. I'll just give that again, ufograyinfo.com. And we have another website dedicated to the books, which is thezetamessage.com.
And the books are...
So people can go...
Yeah, tell the name of the books. The books are wonderful, everybody. You're just going to want to read these.
Yes, we have our non-fiction book, The Zeta Message, which is my life story, Helene's story of the things that started happening in their house when the ETs started contacting them, and I was introduced to them by a mutual friend and came in and helped them out. So that's the Zeta Message. And then there's a docudrama book that's written that's based on that called Human by Day, Zeta by Night. And it's sort of an autobiography, but it's written from the Zeta's perspective entirely. So if anyone has any questions on the Zetas, why we do what we do, how we do, where we do it, they can read Human by Day, Zeta by Night, and all questions will be answered.
And they won't be able to put it down, I guarantee that. But also you have a children's book in there. You have a downloadable children's book that I haven't gotten yet, but I'm going to.
Right.
What is it called?
That's not us.
Oh, I thought it was on your website. Never mind, I'll go back.
It might be by somebody else.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I'm not aware of it. I'm not aware of that one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You've given me an idea. I might have to get busy writing another one.
Well, you know something?
Yes, we actually...
I think children would love it. It is just precious. It's wonderful and really expansive, huh?
Oh, look, I think they would. We're actually tossing over the idea. Hint, hint, anyone who's out there, we would love to actually get Human by Day, Zeta by Night made into a film.
Right on.
I think it would make a wonderful film, either an adult film or a children's. But certainly, teen, young adult, I think would love it. It sort of reminds me a little bit of the series Taken. I can see it maybe being made as a like a, how can I say,
it could be a TV
series,
eh? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's absolutely wonderful. I love the book.
It was that Human by Day, Zeta by Night. That was a real special request by Upstairs, because the fact that people complain all the time, the Zetas won't communicate. They won't communicate. So they said, look, write this book, and that way we can communicate, and in a language that people can understand and not be scared of.
And make people love them, because you can't help it. Well, thank you so much, Judy Carroll. This has been really, for me, invigorating, and hopefully for people listening, expansive. And I want to say to everybody, thank you so much for listening to Paradigm Shifters. And if you'd like to be in touch, some feedback for me about the show or other possible guests or ideas that you have, Veronica at veronicaentwistle.com, or even a session with me, Veronica at veronicaentwistle.com. Thank you so much for listening. Many blessings and good night. 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 Blessings.